is actually this is actually a really important chapter. All the 11 chapter before was preparing us for this chapter. Okay, so everything we learned from understanding how our soul is built, the body of our soul, from understanding our Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov, our good and evil side, from understanding that a tzaddik is perfect, he has no evil within, he's not fighting, he has no more war within him. And in the tzaddik, there's two levels, and those levels are expressed in the love of God. One has a stronger love of God. One, his love of God is so strong that he hates anything that's not godly. Okay, so that's the different levels of tzaddikim. And we learned a rasha has an evil inclination. The evil is stronger within him. He is constantly fighting, but I would say actually no, that his evil side overtakes him. And he and in the rasha there's two levels. There's rasha v'tovlo. There's a rasha who feels guilty, who has good in him, where the good is still within him. And then there's the rasha virala, which is the rasha that the good is not awakened. It's got separated, but it still hovers above him. And because it still hovers above him, even when he is with 10 people, God still rests upon him. So no matter what situation a Jew is in, no matter how, if he doesn't keep anything of Torah, and if he does evils and sin, God is still with that person. Okay? Now comes the Benoni. Benoni, tu peux ouvrir à chapter 12. Maintenant, on explique. This book, the book of Tanya, is called Sefer Shel Benoni. Mm-hmm. It's written for us regular people. Instead of telling us to become tzaddikim, which is impossible, it's impossible for us to get rid of our evil inclination within us. It's impossible of getting rid of our human and natural and animalistic behaviors, our impulses and desires. It's impossible to rid of those. We can't become, it's impossible. It's actually, we cannot become tzaddikim. No, the tzaddikim is just a handful, really, just a handful.
So why are they here?
Why are they here? That's a good question. First of all, we aspire to tzaddikim. They are the heads. They're the ones who guide us. They're the ones who connect us. Without a tzaddik, it's like a body without a head. We need that head in order to breathe, okay, spiritually, and to connect to God. But all of us Russias, okay, Russia Vitovla, hopefully, we can reach the level of a Benoni. Okay, now what is a Benoni? If we know that a tzaddik is someone who has no sins, not only does he not have any sin, he has no temptation. He doesn't feel evil within him. And because of that, his love of God is great, because his heart is empty of evil and it's full of love of God. And a rasha, and fear of God, of course. And a rasha is someone who has evil within, and his evil is stronger, and he struggles and he fights, and he most of the time chooses to sin chooses evil over good. And sometimes actually there's different levels. In a rasha, there's different levels. Sometimes a rasha can be someone who never sinned.
Oh.
Yeah, it could be someone who never sinned, but he has, what's the difference between a rasha and a benoni? We have to understand. So we learned that in a rasha vitovlo, in a rasha who has good, there's many levels. There's the rasha who keeps everything, who never sins, who keeps Torah mitzvahs, but he was never challenged. He was never put in front of a situation where, he was never put in a situation where he was challenged and where he had to choose good over evil or evil over good.
So because of that, he has no.
Because of that, if he was put in that situation, he would have sinned for sure, because he's a rasha, and because his evil is still stronger within him, even if he never sinned, even if he did his life only good things and only things of Torah and mitzvot, because he has the potential to sin, he is called a rasha. He was just not challenged.
Wow.
He was
And
just
we
not
all
put in
have.
a situation that he was, given the choice of, do you want to choose this or give?
Wow.
So a Rasha, even if he never sinned, because he has the potential to sin, he is called a Rasha. Okay? So Rasha is someone who has the potential to sin, and then from that level goes someone who sins a little bit, someone who sins just in thoughts, someone who doesn't want to sin in thought because thought is too close to him and he understands the importance of thought, so he'll only sin in speech. Or someone who won't sin in speech, but only in action, because he'll be like, my thought and my speech are so close to me and so important. It's okay. Actions are little. So from a Rasha, there's different levels. So from the level of never sinning to sinning a little bit to sinning a lot. But always, Rasha V'tovlo has good within him that still makes him feel guilty no matter what. And for someone who never sins, he has the potential to sin if put in a certain situation, if he's challenged. So where does a Benoni fit in? Where does the intermediate person fit in? What are we striving to become? What does God want from us? Okay, this Tanya is. The next chapters are only going to explain the Benoni. Okay. Are only going to explain of how we can become a Benoni. The Benoni is someone whose thought, speech, and action are completely conquered by the good side. They're completely conquered, meaning that he will never let himself come to sin. Okay? Yes. Benoni will never let himself come to sin because his thought, speech, and action is conquered completely. Okay, we learned, you remember when we learned that we have that our body is compared to a small city, and that the two kings, the are fighting for exactly the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination or our animal soul and our godly soul is constantly fighting over to conquer that city. So in a Benoni, he conquered his city. But what did he conquer? He conquered his thought, speech, and action. Okay? And now you can open your Tanya. We're going to read it from inside. It's always better to look inside, so you know I'm not making it up. Hi, Sterna, my sister-in-law. Okay. My other sister-in-law.
Hello.
Bonjour la France.
Bonjour de Strasbourg.
Strasbourg, good.
Okay, so I'm going to share the Tanya. And whoever has what? Okay. Sterna, do not make fun of my accent, okay? I know I have a very funny accent when I read Hebrew.
Don't worry.
So, we're going to read about the Benoni. והבינוני הוא שלעולם אין הרע גבר כל כך לכבש השעיר קטנה. Which page? Chapter 12. It should have that line. 13. So go before, yeah. Okay, so the intermediate man is he in whom the evil of the animal soul never attains enough power to conquer the small city. Okay, Lislabesh baguf leachtiai, so as to close itself in the body and make it sin. Da'ayinu sheshloisha levushay nefesh aba'amin shehen machshava dibur ma'aseh shemitzad haklipa. That is to say, the three garments of the animal soul, namely thought, speech, and action, originating in the klipa, ein gavrim ba'al nefesh elokis leishlabesh baguf, do not prevail within him over the divine soul to the extent of clothing themselves in the body. B'mayach ubapeh bish'ar ramach ivar mlachtiam ulitamam chas v'sham. Neither in the brain, nor in the mouth, nor in any of the other 248 organs, to cause them to sin and to defile them, God forbid. Rak shleisha levushay nefesh elokis, hein levada mislapshim baguf shehen machshava dibur ma'aseh shel taryag mitzvah seter. Only the three garments of the divine soul, they alone manifest themselves in the body, these being the thought, speech, and action related to the 613 commandments of the Torah. Velo avar avera miyamav velo yavar le'alam. The Benoni has never committed any transgression, nor will he ever transgress. ולא נקרא עליו שם רשע אפילו שעה אחת ברגע אחד כל ימיו. The name Rasha has never been applied to him, however, temporarily, not even for a moment throughout his life. Okay, so let me explain now. So, the Benoni, how is he different from a Rasha Vitovlo who never sinned? Is that his machshava dibur ma'aseh, his clothing, his garments are completely conquered by his good. The bad ones are completely conquered by the good side. What are the machshava and dibur ma'aseh? Remember we learned about that? The garments, how are they different than the 10 sefirot? The garments are easily interchangeable. That means we can change them very easily. Your thoughts, your speech, your action, you can very easily change them. But even if we can easily change them, we don't. In a Benoni, he conquered them to the point that they're fully 613 mitzvahs. They're fully conquered by the good side, and the evil is equal to the good side. Is either equal or a little bit less powerful, but it's equal. In a Rasha, the evil side is stronger. So even if a Rasha Vitovlo never sins, okay, there are people that are Rasha Vitovlo, but they never sin, but still their evil within them is stronger than the good side, making it that if they're put in certain situations, they have the capability of sinning. As opposed to Benoni, which his evil side is neutralized, okay? It's equal or a little less powerful than the good side. It's impossible for him to come to sin. He completely conquered his levushim. His garments are completely conquered. That means that in the past and in the future, the sin does not exist. A Benoni cannot sin, can never come to sin. He doesn't have the capability because his mindset is so strong, his good side is so strong that it will not let itself be conquered by the evil inclination. The Rebbe actually asks a question. He says, how is it possible that a Benoni, the Tanya we just read, it says that the Benoni has no past in the past sins and no sins in the future? How is that possible that you're not even letting what does a Benoni mean? Even a tzaddik could have sins in the past, and when he does a complete tshuva, become a tzaddik. And even a tzaddik, sometimes we have in the Talmud, you see stories of tzaddikim who were, perfect tzaddikim, and unfortunately they did a sin and they fell down, and so they made a mistake. So how can you say that a Benoni has no sins in the past and no sins in the future? Where does the Rebbe ask this question? Because we want to understand, what is a Benoni? How can we how can the Sefer Tanya tell us that the Benoni is for all of us, regular people, when you say there's no past sin and no future sin? So then he goes on to answer that when a person becomes a Benoni, when his good side becomes strong and powerful to the point that it neutralizes evil inclination, it's still there. His desires are still there. His temptations are still there. His evil inclination is still alive and kicking, but it's neutralized by the good side. It's equally powerful, the good and the bad within him. So because he's in that mindset where his good is so powerful, he is not in that mindset of being a Benoni. The past averas don't exist. There's no past averas, and the future, there's no such a thing as he's going to sin in the future.
Even if he's challenged.
Yes, even if he's challenged, he's in that situation where you put a Benoni in a challenge where he's tempted, so his desires are going to come, but he's so strong. His good side mindset is so in control that it's going to push away those thoughts. He works on it for sure.
It just happens?
No. Nothing just happens. That's the beauty of a Benoni, is it doesn't just happen. It comes with work. Comes with you know what? Yeah, thank you. And that's what the Tanya is going to tell us, is how to work up to making your good side more powerful, or as powerful as your bad side, in order to neutralize it and become a Benoni. Okay? So it's not that a Benoni didn't have Averis in the past. He did have Averis in the past, but he got to a state of mind. His state of mind is so powerful, he's so strong, that his past Averis are not counted anymore as Averis, and the future, like, he's not planning on sinning in the future. He's not, if he's put in a situation, he's not going to sin. So it's all about his mindset.
That is so inspiring, because actually you understand that the power is only to train your mindset to get there.
Exactly. And Dorit got it. We're going to continue reading in the Tanya that says that the natural way of our the way we work is that our mind controls our heart. But unfortunately, with whatever it is, we don't let ourselves be controlled by our heart and by our mind. And that's why we develop bad habits and whatever it is. But the Benoni has a full control over his heart. His mind has a full control. There's actually a story of a chassid of the Alter Rebbe back in the time of the Napoleon, when Napoleon was conquering Russia. Yeah. So the Alter Rebbe was actually against Napoleon, because Napoleon had ideas of liberals, of letting everybody be free, and he knew that would risk the survival of Judaism, and that it's not, if Napoleon wins over Russia, Judaism is not going to exist. So even if the Russians weren't nice to the Jewish people and they were fighting against religion, he said they were better for the religion, for the survival of Judaism, than Napoleon coming and conquering. So he was supporting the Russian, and he sent a spy, one of his chassid. Okay, a chassid is one of his students, to go and spy in the army of Napoleon and to give that information after to the Russians. So he sent one of his chassid, I forgot his name, and when he was there, he was sitting and he was listening, and he knew French. That's why he sent him. So he knew a very good French. And he told Napoleon, his army, that I'm coming, I'm giving you information from the Russians to help you. And he would give them false information, but at the same time, he would listen to what they have to say and then report it to the Russian. And once he gave a really important information that right after the Russian, like, they lost something. And so in one of the meetings, Napoleon walked in, and usually he wasn't there. He walked in and he says, there's a spy among us. I know there's a spy among us. Someone is telling over. And he walks straight to the chassid and he puts his hand on his heart.
Oh,
exactly. And he says, oh, I'm sorry, I confused you. You're not the spy. And when people heard that story, they said, how is that possible that you weren't afraid? He comes and he puts his hand straight on your heart. Even if you're not the spy, like, everyone just shivers the minute someone comes. And Napoleon was an important person. He was very powerful. How was he able to not have that fear? And he said, because I learned in Tanya how to control my mind over my heart. Yes, very powerful story. So we're going to continue reading on and to understand what the Benoni is and what exactly a Benoni is and how he works, how he functions, or how that state of mind function. Okay? However, the essence and being of the divine soul, which are its 10 faculties, do not hold undisputed sovereignty and sway over the small city. Only at specific times do the faculties of the divine soul hold undisputed sovereignty over the Benoni, with the animal soul having no effect whatsoever on him, such as during the recital of the Shema or the Amidah. At this time of prayer, the supernal intellect above is in a sublime state. V'gam lemata hi she'as hakosher l'chol adam. Likewise, below, the time of prayer is propitious for every man to ascend. She'az mekasher chachma bina das shelai l'Hashem. Then the Benoni binds his chabad, his chachma bina das, to God. La'amig data bigdulas Ein Sof Baruch Hu, meditating deeply on the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof. Ule'ar ashava kirishbe esh bechalal hayemani shebelibay, and arousing through this meditation a burning love of God in the right part of his heart. Ledafka by bekimatar mitzvaseha me'ava. This love in turn leads the Benoni to desire to cleave to him by means of fulfilling Torah and its commandments out of love. Okay, I'm going to stop here. And I'm just going to explain something. So, it says, the Tanya says, in essence, the essence of the soul, okay? And he says the essence of the soul, which is the 10 Sefirot, they're not able to change. Even in a Benoni, it's impossible to change. And I read somewhere that really the essence of the soul is not the 10 Sefirot, but compared to the 3 clothing, compared to the machshava dibor maisa, which is not the essence, it's not essential to the soul, the 10 Sefirot are essence. But what's the real essence of a soul? The real essence of the soul is the soul of the soul. Okay, so the soul has a body. The soul has a body. The body is the 10 Sefirot. When you want to describe the soul, yes, I'm going to go slowly, sorry.
So the body is what?
The body of the soul is the 10 Sefirot. Okay, and then the soul itself has a soul. Okay, just like a body has a body and a soul, in the soul there's 2 parts. There's the 10 Sefirot, okay, which is the exterior part of the soul, which represents the character and the behavior of a person. Okay, that's the soul. And then the soul itself is the essence of the soul. It's something that's can never be changed. It doesn't change. It stays the same. Okay.
We call that something or not?
It's the soul of the soul. It's the essence of the soul, and it never changes. Okay. So compared to the 3 garments, to the 3 levushim, to thoughts, speech, and action, those change easily. They are not the essence of the soul. They are just clothing. They're just garments. Compared to that, our 10 Sefirot is the essence of the soul, because they can't change. Okay, a Benoni cannot change, but really it could change. But for it to change, I know it's complicated, so I'm going to repeat it a few times. Okay, for it to change, really you need divine help, and I'm going to tell you a story of Avraham Avinu.
For it to
Abraham.
change, what is to change? For
the 10 Sefirot to change, for someone to be able to change inner emotions and inner characteristic traits and inner behaviors that are ingrained in you, it's very hard. We cannot change. You need help from above. Okay, so Abraham is the first person to discover God, right? He's the first person to understand that this world is run by a God. He's the first person to understand the control of the mind over the body, to understand that we have to connect to God. And he was able in his life to conquer his body, okay, to conquer the evil within him, and to conquer 243 organs. Okay, how do we know that? The word Avraham before is Aleph, Vez, Resh, and Mem.
Hey.
No, before that, before his bris milah, he was called Avram without a hey. Avram without a hey equals 243 organs. And he was able by himself, okay, of course he was a tzaddik, but by himself he was able to change and to have complete control over 243 organs. After his brit milah, after he did the circumcision, God added a hey in his name, which did 248, the 248 organs. That's when he wasn't able to control his eyes, his ears, and his eyes and ears and his organ, his male organ. And after the circumcision, he got complete control. God gave him that strength to control his eyes and his ears, okay? So why am I saying this? Because there's our body, our physical body, and then there's the body of the soul. the body of the soul, it's impossible to change desires and to change natural feelings and to change the limbs and to have fully control over our inner spiritual organs of the soul. Okay, that's impossible to change. A tzaddik reaches that level because he's either born with that or God gives him that special strength. It's a gift from God because of what he did. Okay, Abraham did things that were above nature, above what any human could do. He was the first one to recognize God. So he got that extra strength from God to have full control over his body, over his physical body, and over his internal body, and he was able to change something to the point that his name changed. So we saw he really changed. He was able to transform. A Benoni is not able to transform. He's able to control his city. He's able to control his thoughts, speech, and action. That he's able to control his mindset. He's able to control his heart. But he's not able to change his heart. He's not able to change any of his 10 sefirot, of his natural desires and emotions. That means that a Benoni, even if he has full control, even if in his mind he will never come to sin, no matter how hard it may be, he will still desire those things. He will still have those desires. He will still have those character traits, but he will be able to control it. He will be able to take full control over his thoughts. Okay, the thoughts that come, any natural thoughts that come in, he's going to be able to push away. His words, his speech, instead of his instinct of saying whatever he wants to say, he's going to be able to control. And his action. That our thought, speech, and action of Torah and mitzvot fully conquered. That even if he's put in a challenging situation, he will not come to sit because he's in that mindset of a Benoni. And his past sins, where he was before, when he was a Rasha, do not exist because his mindset changed. His good is equally to his bad, making it that the bad can never overpower the good. It's equally as strong. But the struggle is still there. He still feels the struggle. As opposed to a tzaddik that does not feel that struggle does not exist. He was able to remove the bad within him, and he was able even to go ahead and have full control over and change things that are not naturally changed.
C'est clair.
Okay, you get it? So, to be human, I guess that humane, animalistic thing in us is a natural, is natural by us, and we shouldn't try to fight it. To say, oh my God, why do I desire this? Why am I like this? This is natural. Oh, look at my nephew. He's so cute. Doesn't he look like Moshe?
Un peu, ouais, un peu. Par contre, elle ressemble beaucoup à Eden.
What? So these desires, all these things we desire, you know, when you're, I mean, a lot of us are going through trying to eating healthy. Yeah. It's natural by us to desire things that are sweeter, that are easier to eat, that are fattening, that are not healthy, because it's fast food. It's just easy. To be able to fight that instinct is not natural. It's harder. Mm-hmm. So we're always going to have desire, unless you really, you know, when I see people that are fully, that remove that desire of junk food and of I don't know, it's a really different level. It's really, for sure it exists. Wow. But that's what the Torah tells us. For sure it exists. We are able to have to master our heart. That's the whole work of the Tanya, is knowing how to master our heart, our desires, our feelings, not to remove them, because we're not able to remove them. So it's very important when we deal with ourselves, not to be upset that we desire these things, but just to know we can control. We could have self-control. It's a lot of work to reach a Benoni, and we hope that, you know, throughout our life we work up to being that. You know, it's not something that can happen overnight, but we are able to work to control our thought, to control our speech, and to control our action Those are the three things. We are not able to change our inner feelings, our inner desires, our behavior and characteristic. That we cannot change. And this also can help us when educating kids. When we see our kids with different characteristic traits, we shouldn't judge them for being born this way. We should help them instead control them or channel that whatever they have to good, but never try to put it down, because this is who we are. So I think it's a very nice balance between being human and being able to be a little bit above human by being by controlling our inner animal and our inner emotions, and using our thought, speech, and action for godly purposes and for holy purposes. So it's important to know that we cannot change it. Okay, now we continued reading in the Tanya. It said that the Benoni only, he always has that evil, that fight within him always exists. There's only one time where it doesn't exist. When he prays. Okay, so I think it's beautiful thing to say, because I grew up with stories of Hasidim of the past, like Hasidim during the time of the Alter Rebbe and the different Rebbeim, and a lot of these stories consist of Hasidim and prayers. That Hasidim were devout, so devoted, more than anything, very into prayer. There was a story of a chassid who would pray for so long that his morning prayer went to his afternoon prayer, that went into his night prayer. So he was basically praying all day. But when you understand, I don't know if these were tzaddikim, but I could imagine that a lot of these chassidim were beinanim. They reached the level of beinani, and because they understood that through prayer, this is my own assumption. When I saw in the Tanya that through prayer, the Benoni reaches a level of a tzaddik, his evil disappears, goes to sleep actually. His evil goes to sleep, and his heart is filled with love for God. You can understand that they only wanted to pray all day because they wanted to be in that level of a tzaddik, something that they cannot be, that as soon as they stopped praying, the evil came back. And they had to be really careful with that, because they're always on alert. A Benoni is always on alert because the evil is there, but they never want that evil to become more powerful than the good. So through prayer, and especially through the Shema, in Shema it says that you should love God with all your heart and all bechol levavecha, both of your hearts. Oh, wow. Through the Shema, they're able to attain that level of loving God with all your heart. So when they say Shema, it's not only something to say, they're actually reaching the level that the Shema is telling them to reach. By reading the Shema, of course, it's a Benoni that can reach that, because he has complete control over his thoughts. So by reading the Shema, he's able to reach that level of love of God that only a tzaddik can reach. He can reach it through prayer, and especially during Shema and during the Amidah. And through saying those words of I love God with all my heart and all my soul, he's able to reach that during prayer. V'ahavta es Hashem, v'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha, v'ahavta es Hashem Elokecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha. It's the long thing. And you should love God with levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha. So with all your heart, with all your souls, okay, that means the godly soul and the animal soul, and with everything, with all your might, okay? So the Benoni is why do we learn about the tzaddik? Dorit says, what's the point of having a tzaddik if we cannot reach it? So there are times in our life when we're able to reach that level of tzaddik. And when could we reach that? First of all, there's certain, we learned last week that there's certain things that we do or that we don't do in our life that are at the level of tzaddik, that we hold so strong by, that is just like a tzaddik is so strongly about everything. We can be strong about one thing, and that we reach that level of a tzaddik in certain little aspects of our life. But a Benoni, every time he prays, he reaches that level of a tzaddik, and he reaches the love of God through prayer and through the Shema. Okay?
Even women can.
When I say the Benoni, I know they use male, but it's female and male for sure.
Shema, I know we do, but we do also Amida.
Yeah, for sure. We pray everything.
Okay.
Every prayer is
The same for men and
the
women?
same for men and women. The only difference is the men do the tefillin.
Okay.
But and it's interesting because the
La femme,
tefillin,
elle doit prier 3 fois par jour aussi?
il y a des femmes qui prient. Ben,
Non, je
la
sais
femme,
pas.
elle n'est pas obligée comme l'homme parce
qu'elle-
qu'on a les enfants. We can't do things that are like timely. You know, anything that has to be done at a time. But yeah, if she can, like the
Oh.
girls, you know, they pray. Well,
Your girls?
if if they're in the school system, it's hard to get them to pray after. But
Okay.
yeah, usually they not 3. The last one is at night. So.
Attends, un homme juif, il fait quoi? Amida.
Et Shacharit, le prière le matin, midi et le soir.
Arvit.
Non, Mincha. Mincha, c'est à midi et Arvit, c'est le soir. Okay? So yeah, there's 3 prayers, and the 3 prayers are compared to the 3 fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, so that's related.
Okay.
And also the men, you were saying for the men, they pray with the tefillin.
Yeah.
And you know that the tefillin has one box over here by the head and one by the heart. It's here, but it's by the heart because we have to control our mind and our heart. That's what it represents. The tefillin is really to help. Why does a man put on tefillin? It's really to help him control his mind and his heart. So what the Tanya is saying is things that it's all interconnected, you know, like the Tanya came many years later, but it's the secrets of Torah. It's explaining us why and how we are supposed to apply Torah in our life,
so
and why it's important.
Control of the heart by your mind?
Yes, to take control of the mind and the heart. But mind controls over the heart, but you still have to control how do you control your mind? By controlling your thoughts with thoughts of Torah and godly thoughts.
And mind over heart always.
Yeah. So God did not give us the ability to control our conscious self. We can master our behavior. That means we can take control over our thought, speech, and action, but we cannot master our inner desires and emotions. So that's something very important to understand, because if you're fighting to try to master something you can't, then it's like, you know, running in mud. You're not going to get anywhere. But by understanding that the only thing we can take control of is our thought, speech, and action, is our garments, and that will influence, of course, our inner being, that makes it more realistic. And that is something that we can do more than saying, no, try to control your feelings. Don't have these feelings,
so
or don't have.
Accept them?
We need to accept them. We need to know that this is inborn. This is how we're born. This is what we have. And instead, are those feelings that are good thoughts? Are they bringing us good thoughts, good speech, good actions? No. So then push it away. Try to replace it. No, hate them and try to replace it with good thoughts, good speech, and good action. Last night, we had a really nice finishing circle for our 21 days. So we did 21 days of the detox. That's it. It's over. And so we were speaking a lot about this, how, you know, sometimes like in food, it's very connected. Yeah. We have like, we have our impulses, and instead someone was saying that like whenever she has like these, you know, feelings or thoughts or whatever, she just tries to replace it with good thoughts. Good. So those feelings are it's part of us, whatever it is. You know, everyone has different ways of how their body is expressed, but don't fight it. Replace it with good things. Use your garments. Change your garments. Don't change your inner emotion, your sfirot. Okay?
That's very helpful.
It is very helpful. Now for tefillah, okay, for prayer, let's go a little bit. We have 10 more minutes. I'm going to touch a little bit upon prayer because the Tanya speaks about prayer, and then you know what? We're going to read a little bit more, and then I'll just introduce a little bit about prayer. So we're going to read a little more, and okay. So, Shezehu inyan hamevar b'kriyat shema deraisa. This arousal of love for God and its accompanying resolve to adhere to Torah and mitzvahs are thereby to cleave to Him is the essential subject of the Shema, which the biblical commandment enjoins us to recite. ובירכוסיה שלפניה ולאחריה שהן מדרבנן הן הכנה לקיום הקריאה שמע כמו שנסבר במקום אחר. Likewise, the rabbinically ordained blessing preceding and following the Shema are a preparation enabling us to fulfill that which we recite the Shema, as explained elsewhere. ואז הרע שבכלל השמאלי כפוף ובטל לתו המספשט בחלל הימני בחכמה בינה דס שבמוח המקושרים בגדולת אין סוף ברוך הוא. At such time, the evil in the left part of his heart is subjected to and is nullified before the goodness that spreads into the right part of the heart from the Chabad faculties in the brain, which are bound in meditation to the greatness of the blessed Ein Sof. אבל אחר התפילה בהסתלקות המכן דגדולת אין סוף ברוך הוא, הרי הרע חזר ונער בחלל השמאלי ומסעווה טבע לטווס עולם הזה בתענוג. However, after prayer, when the state of sublimity of the intellect of Ein Sof, blessed is he, departs, the evil in the left part of the heart reawakens, and he once again feels a desire for the lust of this world and its delight. רק מפני שלא לבד משפט המלוכה והממשלה בעיר אינו יכול להוציא טווסי מכך אל הפעל להסלבש באברי הגוף. Yet because the evil of the animal soul has not the sole authority of dominion over the city, it is unable to implement this desire by clothing itself in the limbs of the body, במעשה דיבור מחשבה ממש, to engage in deed, speech, or actual thought, להעמיק מחשבתי בתענוגי עולם הזה, to concentrate his attention on worldly pleasure with view to devising means of satisfying the lust of his heart. Okay? So, let me just explain what I said. So, the Tanya was saying that when he reads Shema, and even the preparation, the prayers, all the prayers before, he reaches a level of holiness where his evil is sleeping and he's connected to God. His mind and his soul is connected to God, and he reaches a level of a tzaddik. So through tefillah, through prayer, and through the preparation, and especially through Shema, by saying those words, he's actually it's not only words to tell us what to do, but those words bring him to that level of loving God and completely removes that evil within him, or removes it in putting it to sleep, and fills his heart with love of God. And it says that right after he finishes, his evil comes back, and the Tanya stresses that he is not able to remove his control. You know, it says that Benoni conquered the city, but it's not able to conquer the city, the actual body parts of the city. Okay, he can't take control.
Small city he conquered.
He conquered the small city. He conquered the garments of the city. He is not able. He only conquered the outside of the city. He is not able to conquer all those different limbs of the soul and the characteristic and the feelings. That's how God created us, and it's a very powerful force, and it's our human force, and we're not able to conquer it, and a Benoni is not able to conquer it, so we should not aim for that.
Unless when he's praying?
When he's praying, it's not that my brother keeps on calling. It's not that he conquers it. When he's praying, he brings in light. It says something, actually, let me bring you something beautiful. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, who was the wisest person, he says, wisdom has a benefit over foolishness, just like the benefit of light over darkness.
Has a benefit of what?
Over foolishness. Wisdom has a benefit over foolishness.
What is that, foolishness?
Foolishness is the opposite of wisdom. C'est
la stupidité.
Stupidité, I guess.
Just like what?
Just like the benefit of light over darkness.
Okay.
So there's a question. It says, isn't that so obvious that wisdom has a benefit over foolishness? Like, why does he need to bring, like, how is that smart, that what he's bringing?
Yeah.
So what was he trying to explain over here? He was explaining that just like light overpowers darkness, and darkness is the absence of light. That means when you bring a little candle into a big room that's dark, that small candle could wipe away the darkness because light overpowers darkness. Okay? Darkness doesn't have a reality in itself. It's the absence of light. So just like the light overpowers darkness in that sense, wisdom overpowers foolishness. Foolishness does not have a reality of its own. It's the absence of wisdom. And by bringing wisdom, it pushes away the foolishness. So when a Benoni, okay, like our evil side is kind of compared to the foolishness. When a Benoni prays, he brings in the wisdom of light. He brings in the wisdom of God, okay, the wisdom and connects to the wisdom of God, and it pushes away that foolishness that's within him. That only happens when he prays. So what happens when he prays? It pushes away. It like disappears, the evil. Although it's still there, it's sleeping. It didn't really disappear. Okay? But it has that effect of light over darkness. Okay? So you wanted to know what happens too. So it's the power of prayer is it's funny because Hasidus and Chabad makes a big accent on prayer. It's a big deal. Prayer is a big deal in Chabad. And it's funny because out of all the different customs and the different how do you say it? Like sect, if you want, of Jews, or a different I don't know what the word is, but the different branches. Okay, that's a better word. The Chabad can pray much later than most people. Like Sephardim will pray at 8 in the morning. Like prayer is going to be right away. Chabad always is known to pray late. Why? Because in order to pray, we prepare ourselves, and we the Chabad people they study Hasidus before praying in order to prepare them. So it's like the prayer is a whole different process, and so prayer is a big deal. And when you understand that prayer puts you in that state where it cancels out your evil, or it nullifies evil, or it puts to sleep your evil, and it makes you connect and feel and arouses that love of God, you understand why prayer is so important. And
can we learn how to pray?
Of course you can learn. There's so many things.
So that will be our next.
So I feel like next
Tanya.
next week I'm going to give a little bit on prayer. I decided that since it spoke about prayer, so I just want to say over here there's two aspects of prayer. There's the aspect of how it's halacha, like if you're supposed to pray and the details of praying, and then there's the Hasidic, there's the philosophy about prayer. But so I'm going to go more into that next week, but we just have to know that tefillah, that prayer, brings us to a level that a tzaddik reaches. And tefillah, and the Tanya brings it in this, that the Benoni, when he prays, he's able to reach a level that he's not able to reach otherwise without prayer. As soon as he stops praying, he gets back to that state, the evil reawakens in him, and he's back fighting and alert, always on alert. So it's only through prayers. Yeah, very, very powerful. Prayer is very powerful.
Then prayer and faith.
Yeah.
La foi et la prière, c'est
Well, la foi, c'est différent que la prière.
Ouais, mais quand tu l'as,
yeah,
it's powerful.
For sure. So I think a lot of people have faith, and a lot of people who have faith have a hard time praying. Okay. You can have faith and not pray.
For sure. I don't know how to pray. I would love
you can pray and not have faith too. But because sometimes you pray and you don't realize. But when you understand what prayer does to you, and what you can reach, the levels you can reach, it will give you. So next week, we're going to learn a little bit more about prayer.
Tu aurais la gentillesse de nous imprimer au moins une prière qu'on doit faire chaque matin.
I could do that.
On peut l'avoir chez moi.
I could do that next week.
Yeah?
Yes, that's a good idea. I'm going to print something for prayer that would be good.
Yeah.
Well, already the Shema. Shema. Look at what the Tanya says. The Shema, to tell the truth, the Shema is the most important. If you have to pray, you say Shema. Everything else is an introduction.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Everything else is an introduction to Shema. Okay, isn't that amazing? And in the Tanya it tells you why. Because the Shema tells you to love God. Not only through saying the Shema, it makes you be able to love God the way He wants, the way you should love. Okay. Anyways, I think it's beautiful. So thank you. I'm going to see you guys next week. I'm going to send a recording for all those. And see you next week. Have a good week.
Next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Chanel. Bye, Sterna.